It is now officially, not officially the end of week 1. Let me state that real quick in this video. 2 games have not happened yet, so we might not talk about those 4 teams.
Sam Darnold threw a pick.
Anyways, we are here. We are the Fantasy Forecasters. We are going to talk about your players that maybe you should look at picking up, some of the big injuries who disappointed us, and obviously we'll have our starts and sits of the week as well. And I think our big one to get into right away is some of the big injuries that have already taken place week 1. And I think you should start with the big one because it's the big one.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I haven't watched the video. Obviously, that game had a lot of weird things anyway. It went on for, 7 hours and 10 minutes? But the video is online of Delanie Walker's ankle break, and I hear it looks pretty awful. I refuse to watch it. But Delanie Walker is officially out for the season. It's a disappointment for me and for anyone who's an NFL fan. He's been a solid tight end for 4 years now at the Titans. So it's a disappointment to see him go down for the season. I know he was a higher draft this year than I think he's ever been, especially after getting paid. So it's a little bit of a disappointment that he goes down. But if you have Delanie Walker on your team right now, and sorry if I don't get the name right, I'm going to preface it by saying that, I would say go for his backup right now, Jonnu Smith. He only had 3 targets this week. But the Titans always have the tight ends having targets. Delanie Walker used to have 8 targets there. He's taken over as the starter more than likely. Luke Wilson will probably get a lot of them there too. Jonnu Smith has had games where he has already come in and had more receptions than Delanie Walker last year a couple times. So I think he's pretty safe bet to have a couple of targets. And I wouldn't say sign him if you say have another starter in there like Austin Safari and Jenkins or something like that. But he might be someone to have as your backup in case Delanie Walker was somebody that you drafted high and now you're screwed. So, unfortunately, though, you lost Delanie Walker for the year. It's official.
Well, speaking of tight ends that went down with injury, another big one got hurt, and we don't know the severity of it today. Again, keep an eye on it. Greg Olsen of the Carolina Panthers re-injured the foot that he hurt last year that kept him out. So, most likely, you probably will not be seeing him for coming weeks and possibly for the year. Now, I'm not going to go and say draft his backup because I don't know if I completely trust whoever is backing up.
Is it Ed Dixon?
I think it is Ed Dixon.
Is it still Ed Dixon? Really?
So. But the one name that I would say to look for is someone who's been now all of a sudden put out there because of his big game against a tight defense of the Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
And that's George Kittle. Kittle, I believe, was 9 for 90.
And he should have had way more than that. I will put that out there.
He did not have a touchdown. However, that's also a promising sign to see Jimmy Garoppolo just getting Kittle involved in the offense, because that gives you another great option at tight end, since it's a very slim market to begin with, especially with these 2 names going down with injuries. Kittle is out there for most leagues. Get him now, because I'm telling you now, if you don't grab him this week, and I know that sadly we might not get this video in before that. Hopefully we do. But if you don't get him this week, I'm telling you now, he's probably going to be gone in most.
Right. Yeah, and that, I'm going to move to a running back, and that's obviously Leonard Fournette. He left the game pretty early with a hamstring injury. He's pretty much day-to-day. He wasn't noticed to be seen with a limp. However, it's something you want to monitor. If you have Fournette, I would strongly recommend picking up Yeldon as a handcuff. I mean, let's be honest, Yeldon's, even when Leonard Fournette plays, Yeldon still gets his targets. He's a change of pace back. He will be the full-time starter. They'll probably sprinkle in some Corey Grant here and there. But to me, if you have Fournette, it's definitely worth keeping Yeldon as your handcuff.
Fair enough.
So I think now we're going to switch gears here a little bit. We're going to talk about our fantasy busts of the week. I'll go ahead and start, and my biggest bust is the guy that I've been extremely, extremely high on all preseason long, and that was Deshaun Watson. I think losing Will Fuller had a definite impact on the game. Will Fuller is a game changer. He's a deep threat, especially when teams are just double, triple teaming DeAndre Hopkins. So, you can place the blame wherever, but let's be honest, his completion percentage wasn't the greatest. he struggled. He had an interception. He had a fumble. The offensive line wasn't really doing him much favors. So to me, Deshaun Watson was kind of a disappointment this week. I do think he'll bounce back. Once he kind of gets some traction on that, leg. Once he kind of gets that in the rhythm, he will do a lot better. But for me, it was just kind of a disappointing.
And I'm pretty sure they play the Titans this week, so he should bounce back this week.
Should. Yeah. I'll let you go because mine kind of goes into your surprise.
All right, so my disappointment was on a team that actually looked like a great offense. I mean,
Well, one person.
well, I know, but Patrick Mahomes looked good as well. However, on the flip side, Tyreek Hill is the only one really getting anything. And on the flip side, that means that your obvious number one tight end that you probably put in got you 1 catch off of 6 targets for 6 yards. Travis Kelce was a no-show, and he basically is the number 2 tight end that everybody drafted. He should be. He was great last year, but it kind of puts you in that worry of, is this going to be a constant thing? Like, is Mahomes not going to target Kelce as much? Or was it just the fact that maybe the Chargers linebacking core, it could just shut down Travis Kelce? So it's something to monitor, especially if right now you only have Kelce because you were that confident in him.
Yeah, so, and to be honest, the other disappointment, you could easily go with pretty much most of that offense. You could go with Sammy Watkins there. You go with Kareem Hunt. As long as you're not talking about Tyreek Hill, you could go with a lot of disappointments off that offense. But they won the game because Tyreek Hill, very convincingly. So my biggest bust was somebody that was being talked about pretty much all week by everyone. How many wide receivers do the Patriots have? Well, Chris Hogan's got to be the number one. You've got to start Chris Hogan this week. Shootout, this, that. Chris Hogan had 5 targets this week and ended up with 1 catch for 11 yards. So in PPR, that's 2.1 fantasy points. That and out of PPR, that's 1.1 points. For a guy that everyone talked about as being a must draft, a must sign, a must everything, and not showing up at all. And then you go into week 2, and maybe he's your top receiver at this point. Maybe you got him early, and now he's going in to face the Jaguars in week 2. I'm nervous about Hogan at this point. Do I trade him at this point? Probably not quite yet. I obviously don't cut him. But you're a little nervous at this point, and you're at that point where like, should I keep him at this point? Keep him at this point, but I wouldn't play him this week either. So, but it was big bust. He was supposed to be huge this week in Houston, and he wasn't. But then we're going to go, and I'm not going to start with the surprise. I'm going to pass it on because he kind of has the other side of it.
But who did Tom Brady throw it to? Because Tom Brady got touchdown passes. Gronk.
Well,
way to ruin the intro.
Gosh.
Come on. Yes, Gronk, play him. Brady loves him.
Yeah.
Gronk fumbled though.
That's my surprise. Now, my surprise, obviously, is pushing it off to me because we're getting into surprises now. Philip Dorsett, a name that pretty much was a bust coming out of Indianapolis, drafted first round in the Forget Me Now Grigson era in Indianapolis. I know someone's going to appreciate that one. But Dorsett got traded to New England. No one was really sure if he was going to do anything. He kind of got forced into this position whenever Patriots cut everybody. Decker retired, and Edelman's out for the first 4 games. And Brady still finds a way. Dorsett was targeted 7 times, caught all 7. He also went, that looked like 6.5. He went 66 yards for a touchdown.
6.5 yards.
He went 66 yards and a touchdown, and Chris Hogan might have been a disappointment, but it could be interesting for your fantasy to keep an eye on Philip Dorsett because you never know. He might actually come in and take over Edelman's role. So I'm not saying he will, but it's someone to actually probably stash on your receiving core because it's a Brady receiver.
Good answer, because I was going to even ask you. I was like, would you put in your waiver on him? Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no doubt, because it's a Brady receiver. Brady loves all of his receivers.
Brady loves everyone.
He does.
Brady loves Chris Collins.
Brady shares the love.
Well, actually, Aaron Rodgers and Chris Collins. points were third item. Okay, so I'm going to go into mine. And I can tell you it was pretty funny. We were watching the game together, and the first touchdown of the Seahawks game went to Will Dissly, and we all looked at each other like, what position does who is that? But I tell you what, then it was only a half a quarter later that you saw Will Dissly just burn the whole defense in Denver and almost get a second touchdown of the day and almost put the Seahawks up by himself. So he ended up with 3 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. So it's a surprise to me just because I had no idea who he even was or even who the starter really was going to be in Seattle. He's kind of made it clear that he's probably going to be there. In fact, I actually read the the ESPN prediction for him this season, and it says specifically, do not sign him. He's going to be a blocking tight end. He is not worth it. Leave him on the waiver wire. So I found that pretty funny. But great game this week, out of nowhere. Do you sign him at this point? Maybe. The only reason I say maybe is obviously we put out there 2 guys already that are injured tight end wise. There was a lot of tight end busts this week. Let me tell you, everyone from Jimmy Graham to Trey Burton, same game.
Can I just state something about that? Because you said something that made me kind of laugh.
What?
So Dissly was mainly brought in as a blocking tight end. He's all of a sudden turned into a receiving tight end, like at least one game right now. And they traded for Jimmy Graham a while back, and they changed him into a blocking tight end. So I mean, it's just kind of interesting when you think about it, considering, like you just said, Dissly was meant to be a blocking one.
Yeah, but like I said, in the end, I wouldn't say put him on your high waivers or something like that. If you're one that has to spend on waivers, no. I wouldn't put any money down on him yet. Somebody will. He will probably be signed in leagues. Yeah. But I think he's one of those flash in a pan type of tight ends that maybe will put up a couple weeks good for you, but for the most part, he'll be quiet with a 0 to 3 points. But very out of nowhere awesomeness for him for week 1. But avoid.
My surprise of the week should come as no real surprise because he's magic. And that is Fitzmagic. 417 yards, 4 touchdowns against what is supposed to be an improved, really solid New Orleans defense.
Supposed to be one of the best.
Who were undefeated at home last season. They didn't lose at all. Now they lose to the Buccaneers, who everyone thought was the basement dweller of that division. Now, am I saying Fitzmagic's going to come out next week against the Eagles and put up 400 yards? Absolutely.
I was going to say, if you watch the previous video, I'm pretty sure you picked the Bucs.
No,
he didn't.
Fitzmagic probably isn't going to sustain those types of numbers. Is he capable of putting up that amount of yards? I mean,
he's got the weapons.
Yeah. I mean, you have O.J. Howard, who's a young, fast tight end. You have Mike Evans, who is unguardable. You have Deshaun Jackson, who's been in the league for how long, can still burn people deep. Now, I know he got a concussion, so that's something we monitored.
Obviously monitor that.
But even then, you still have Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
Godwin, wow.
And then you have a guy that no one even talked about because he didn't do anything, and that's Cameron Brate. So you still have 2 extremely capable tight ends. You have a legit number 1 wide receiver in Mike Evans. You have a stable of running backs to play with. So to me, it's a surprise that Fitzpatrick pulled out those kind of numbers. But let's be honest, he's in a position where he can succeed. Like I said,
he's got the team.
If you were in a 2-quarterback league, chances are Fitzpatrick was sitting on your waiver wire. I think he's definitely worth a stash at this point. Because the Bucs have already said when Winston comes back, his job isn't guaranteed. And if Fitzpatrick continues to play well...
It's also really telling that Fitzpatrick this year has much less to work with, and he's already looked better than Winston last year, who had a lot more to work with.
Right.
Yeah, although I will say that I still don't like that running back core. It's all going to be passing. If they do anything, it's all passing. So, is what it is.
Right.
You got quarterback, so.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to jump into our fantasy starts and sit for week 2. Now, please note that we do our videos every Monday, so it's still early in the week. We try to steer away from players that have injury designations, people that are potentially questionable, it's different matchups. So with my first quarterback start of the week, I'm going Alex Smith against the Indianapolis Colts. If you've watched our previous week 2 game pick videos, you know that I'm very high on this Washington offense. I know, Jordan Reed didn't have that huge of a game.
He had the touchdown, though.
Did he get the touchdown?
Yeah, he got the touchdown, though.
Josh Dotson didn't do a whole lot. They didn't really work him in. A lot of it was Chris Thompson. The running backs looked great, but to me, Alex Smith doesn't turn the ball over. The Colts secondary does not scare anybody. So for me, Alex Smith he could potentially be a top 10 play this week.
Fair enough.
For my sit, this may surprise a few people, but I'm going with Matt Ryan as my sit this week. The Panthers defense looked great. I know it was against a sputtering, falling Cowboys pass attack that has not been that good. But let's be honest, it's not like Matt Ryan looked the greatest against the Eagles defense either. I think if you look at this game, it's a division game. They're always tough. Matt Ryan's numbers against the Panthers has not always looked the greatest. So I think because of that reason, if you have another option available, I would start somebody else other than Matt Ryan this week.
Just real quick, Matt Ryan against the Panthers, he did have him and Julio Jones' biggest game as of late.
I think he had a career game.
Yeah, but that was last year.
No, that was a couple years back.
It wasn't even last year.
Yeah, it wasn't last year. I think it was 2 years ago. But I had to laugh at that because I'm like, well, I mean, one game he did.
One game out of like.
Who's counting though?
All right, so I'll jump in with the running backs. This is kind of hard to actually think of because there's not a lot of like definite ones that you got to put out there. So I went with James Conner, who had the amazing first week against the Browns in a tie effort. Way to help him out there, Pittsburgh.
It's not a loss.
Conner goes up against the Chiefs. As you know, I picked the Steelers in our last pick'em video. And I just think that the Steelers will roll over that Chiefs defense. They're still not solid. It's still obvious to see that Phillip Rivers had a day with them. Melvin Gordon had a really good game as well. And James Conner, the Browns defense is not terrible, and he went for 38 carries, 135 yards. He had 2 touches onto that, and I don't think he had any catches. He might have, though.
Yeah,
He did. He had a couple short ones.
So that's also what Gordon did, and also Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler, man.
Who is someone to keep an eye on. I don't have him down. But Conner against the Chiefs should be a good one. Chiefs gave up pretty big. I actually have Gordon's numbers: 15 carries, 64 yards, and 9 receptions for 102 for the Chargers running backs. So again, it's the Chargers. I mean, the Chiefs defense is a little. I still don't fully trust them. I think Connor's going to exploit that. My sit of the week, I kind of went a little limp on here because that's not something to say on it. It was really hard to find one, and I ended up going with just not a great matchup in general. The Eagles defense just looked good last week. They held Devonta Freeman to 36 yards on 6 carries, averaging 6 a pop, but he did get injured in that game, so he could have done more. Tevin Coleman went 9 for 19. He did get a touchdown, but that just shows how strong of a defense that Eagles team is. I don't fully trust Peyton Barber in this matchup. He had an okay game this past week. He went 19 for 69 against Saints team that they actually kind of just mauled.
You would think they would have been running more too.
Yeah, no, they didn't. So I would not put Peyton Barber in this week. It's a definite sit in my book.
Very good. So I'm going to go wide receivers, and this first one, Titans. Marcus Mariota may not play. It could be Blaine Gabbert. We don't know at this point. But even with that all being said, Corey Davis basically got most of the targets on the team. No other player on that team had more than 8 targets. He had 13 targets. He only did bring 6 of them in for 62 yards, but that shows, and it kept going after Gabbert came in the game. The ball kept going in his direction. Corey Davis is the wide receiver there. They don't have much after him, and now with Delaney Walker out for the season, he's going to get the targets. I don't care what defense he is against. He's going to get the targets. This week he's against the Texans that, to a point, shut down one of the big guys, as we already discussed, Chris Hogan, but also gave up all those yards to Philip Dorsett. So they're definitely a team that can be exploited in the backfield. Corey Davis should get a lot of targets this week no matter who the quarterback is there. So if you're looking for a wide receiver that you could start this week with hoping that they'll get at least somewhere around 8 to 10 targets, Corey Davis is probably a really good one for you. My sit for the week, and in all honesty, it was really one big play that got him most of his points this week. Randall Cobb, he closed the game out for the Packers by getting that 75-yard touchdown catch. He had 10 targets, although a couple of those were from Deshaun Kaiser, and they were really short passes. But he ended up with 9 catches for 142 yards, and that touchdown, half of that all on one play. So pretty good game, but once again, you got to look at the fact that their matchup is against a defense that is known to be better, and that's not a shot against the Bears defense. I think the Bears defense could be good, but the Vikings defense is known to be a good one. I don't think Randall Cobb can put up those type of numbers against the Vikings defense out there. I'd go more towards Devontae Adams if you have to play him, because I think he's going to have a bigger game this week than he had last week, although he still had a pretty decent one. But I just think Randall Cobb's going to get lost in the shuffle a lot of weeks, and I think this is going to be one of those weeks where he's just not even worth looking at. So I would bench Randall Cobb. Don't buy into the hype of that one big play on Sunday Night Football.
All right, so I guess we'll jump over here for the flex.
Or tight end.
Or let's do tight ends next.
Because I didn't go after it. No, we went. No, we didn't. All right, I'll let you go tight ends. Go tight ends.
Yeah, we'll go tight end. My tight end start of the week is Eric Ebron. He had a decent showing last week. He had the touchdown. He had a couple of targets. Jack Doyle is obviously the guy there. But if you remember correctly, Indy loved the 2 tight end sets back when they had Dwayne Allen and Cole. What was the other guy's name? Coby Fleener. They did a lot of 2 tight end sets. So I think that opens the door up for Eric Ebron. We know T.Y. Hilton's going to get all the double coverage. That kind of leaves the inside wide open for Ebron. For Jack Doyle, I think Ebron's more of the athletic tight end, more so than Doyle. What are you laughing at?
You said his name wrong like 5 different ways now, and I said it. Ebron.
Oh, Ebron?
I'm like, you said it like 5 different ways too. You haven't even said it the same way multiple times. I'm like, it's a new way every single time.
Eric Ebron is the fantasy start tight end this week. Start him. You can feel comfortable with it. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. They run the 2 tight end sets, like I said before. My sit this week is do not chase the fantasy points. Will Dissly is a 1-week wonder. Someone's going to chase the fantasy points. Don't let it be you.
Don't do it.
Don't buy into the hype. Now, if nobody picks him up and next week he balls out, okay, take a chance. But for me, I'm not going to rely on a 1-week wonder who is primarily used as their blocking tight end. I mean, we all know that can change, especially after the show he put on. But for me, Will Dissly is nothing more than you're chasing fantasy points at this point. So for me, that is my sit this week.
And believe me, I know I did that with Kenny Golladay last year. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, it's my turn. I have the flex, as you probably heard whenever I cut him off. Flex, we look at the receivers, running backs, and tight ends. I only went running backs. My flex start of the week, actually going back to that Redskins-Colts game, ironically.
And Redskins running backs, they just don't go away.
Yeah, no, they're back. They're back again because Peterson looked good against his former team in the Cardinals. He went 17 for 95 yards, and he got 5 catches for 54 yards. I got that backwards. He went 26 for 96 for a touchdown. And he had 2 catches for 70 yards. The Colts played against Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon's was 17 for 95 with 5 catches for 54. Seeing how Mixon was pretty good out the backfield as well for catching, and Peterson did that against the Cardinals, I can see the Redskins pretty much taking advantage of the out the backfield pass. Again, Colts didn't look like they really could make a good stop against Mixon, and we'll see how they do against Peterson. I just think that Peterson is going to take advantage of that, especially since he's out to prove something this year. My sit this week is another old man.
The oldest running back in the NFL at that.
I know he had more yards than Kenyon Drake. and he had almost just the same amount of carries, I believe, because I think Drake ended
It
with
was-
10 carries, and
it
I
was
think
close.
Gore had 9. Gore ended up the game with 9 carries for 61 yards. Again, this goes back to the Disley. Just because Gore had more yards than Drake, this is not Gore's team. This is Kenyon Drake's team. I mean, we again don't really know how the Jets are doing, but I don't really trust Gore to do much against the Jets, even if the defense really struggles against the run. If that's the case, a good running back to start will be Kenyon Drake, not Frank Gore. Frank Gore is the handcuff, and he's only going to be put in if you absolutely have no one else. Don't buy into it. It's Kenyon Drake's team.
Agreed completely. So I'll close us out. I am going the defenses. Who is your starting and sitting defense? Well, the first one, the starter, is going to be the Ravens D. Obviously,
We insult the Bills again.
obviously, everyone saw what they did to the Bills defense, but I'm not even really taking that into account. I didn't even write what points they got. Let's just say that it wasn't even a game, and the Bills offense looked like we all said it was for the last 4 weeks. It actually, I think it looked even worse than what we did talk
Yeah,
about it on.
yeah.
That was awful. That was ugly. And then they put Josh Allen in, and he does even worse. Oh, anyway, so basically, I'm not going by that though. It's on a short week for one. And Bengals may have looked pretty decent at times against the Colts, but they also struggled. And not only that, it's the other big thing. It's Andy Dalton in primetime. I mean, who can name an Andy Dalton primetime game where he did really, which one?
I actually was there whenever Johnny Manziel started one of his few games.
Against the Cleveland Browns, John
It was
Manziel.
Cleveland Browns
Did he
against.
really look good that week? Or was it just one of those that the
It was,
Browns looked that
it was
bad?
a good week for Dalton that week, and it was a Thursday night game.
Oh, I don't count. I don't count the Browns in there though. Come
I
on,
was
you
gonna say, I
can't
thought you
count
just
the
said you
Browns.
weren't counting the Thursday night, even though this.
No, I'm saying I don't count the Browns. Do we really need to? Besides this year when they tied the Steelers, they tied the Steelers.
I'm just saying, Dalton had a good prime time
Yeah,
game.
he did good against the Browns. Yeah. Dalton rarely ever looks good in primetime, including in playoffs. He's looked terrible in primetime in all of them. They're against the
Peyton Manning
Ravens.
was still in the league too.
Jesus, man. So yes. Anyway, Dalton historically does not look good in primetime games. This should be another good week for the Ravens. I don't think the Ravens are going to end up by the end of the year in the top half of the league in defense. I'm not sold at this point on them, but another good matchup for them to play this week. I think they're the start of the week. Nothing to do with the fact that they annihilated the Bills. You might even see that the Chargers this week. And I don't think our defense person will say the Chargers start their defense next week. I could be wrong. My sit of the week is the Browns. Now, I said in the last preseason video for the teams that you should sign the Browns defense. It's a nice out under the radar defense that's out there that's going to possibly get you points when you possibly need one. And they showed up against the Steelers. They put up 14 points in a standard fantasy football league. So a pretty good week. They turned it over 6 times overall in that game, 5 of them specifically from the quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. So they had a great game. This week they have the Saints. I believe it's actually in New Orleans. I could be wrong on that. But the Saints are coming out angry. The Saints just lost and gave up to the Bucs, who I think they probably went into that game thinking, yeah, we got this, and kind of folded a little bit. I don't think that was a show of what the Saints are. I think this game might be a blowout. I think the Saints are going to put up points. I don't like the Browns' defense. And to make matters even greater, they struggled against the run, and you have a team. I don't think after Gillislee's performance this week, I don't think you're going to see much of Gillislee this week. But Alvin Kamara, you're probably going to see lots and lots and lots of Alvin Kamara in that game. And if James Conner can put up his 135 yards and 2 touchdowns, just imagine what Kamara can do. So stay away from the Browns. As much as I like the Browns defense this year, I just think it's coming out pretty bad against the Saints defense. I just can't see them doing much this week, so avoid this at all costs. And with that is our fantasy video of the week. That's our starter sitters and busts and stuff. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Sorry for begging, but we'll beg you. Please, please.
I'm gonna go puppy dog eyes.
Look at that. Can you say no to these eyes? You can say no to these ones. Anyway, so we're going to be doing this every week, and just FYI, we're the fantasy forecasters. We predict it just as good as the weatherman
That didn't go
or
well as
woman
I thought.